totally the wrong tool for the job. This is my springtime rake rather than my solid rake, but that's because Poppy is sound asleep on top of my other rake. So this will suffice. So lovely and warm once the sun comes out, which it is doing. Oh, a stray potato. Afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing? I hope you're good. Let's have a catch up. I nearly forgot my anti-fox poop device. Having prepped this bed, I don't want it to now be used as a latrine. Oh, that's better. A proper good afternoon to you all. How are you doing today? I hope you're well. It started off... Sorry. I'm carrying on from my squash harvest day. You can just see the rouge out the corner of your eye. What started as a 10-degree, chilly, damp morning. It's literally just gone noon. The sun's been out for about an hour now. It's really kind of dried up all the dew. I'm actually getting quite warm as I work. A little bit sweaty even. Oh, now you've woken up. So it's a beautiful, beautiful day for working. I'll see how far I can get. I'm not going to push myself, but, you know, I want to make the most of such a beautiful day. So, that was the ex-potato bed I was in. I'll just say a couple of things in terms of bed prep, because we're right at the time of year now where we're either taking crops out and putting new ones in a couple of places, or we're taking crops out and that bed will be fallow now until, at the earliest March next year, the earliest being, say, potatoes. More generally speaking, about April for potatoes and onions, that sort of thing going in. So yeah, beds are either going to be reused right now, or they're going to be fallow, they're going to go to sleep for the winter. We all need that, don't we? It's funny, when I took the beam poles down this year, I did it earlier than I've done it for the last couple of years. And there's a part of me, I don't want to rush to close the garden up for winter. I mean, it won't be closed up completely. There will be 8 out of 20 beds will still be in action. But in terms of sort of emptying the beds, getting them covered, getting structures down, I sort of want to get it done a bit earlier this year. It's all to do with up here. It's partly because literally all year I felt on the back foot with the garden. Any of you who've been following all year will know that I have felt on the back foot all year, and I felt I'm always trying to play catch up. And it's been a little bit stressy. Listen, it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. Excuse my phone. But actually, I think I might need to answer that. Hang on a tick. I'm going to have a visit in a second. Yes, so in the grand scheme of things, no, it's not a big deal. But for me this year, it was getting a bit continually stressy. So in a way, I sort of want to pack it up sooner, because I really want to focus on some other stuff. However, I'm also not in a rush to do it because of days like today. I want to really, really make the most of these last kind of shirt sleeves days in the garden. So back to the point. The point is, beds are either going to be prepped to be used again, or they're going to be put to bed for the winter. So that's the ex-potato bed. I will be planting garlic in that bed next week, I hope. I was mentioning a few days ago, we have been really, really wet, and I was worried about planting into such wet soil, but actually having dug the potatoes up and seeing it's moist, but it's not sopping. Hallelujah, I think I'm finally getting somewhere with my soil. So in terms of preparing that bed and the ex-tomato bed, which will become a broad bean bed, quite simply, well, obviously with the potatoes, my fork has gone down in there and flipped the soil up to get my potatoes out. So it's kind of loosened the soil anyway. So all I've done this morning, we're afternoon now, I've given it a sprinkling of chicken manure pellets, and then, as you've just seen now, just sort of raked it all level again, because where I dug potatoes out, it was all kind of lumpy and all over the place. So in raking it level again, that's also just raked those chicken manure pellets in a little, and they'll start to dissolve and release their goodness into the soil. Perfect for the garlic. Now, the other thing I did around the edge, so between the bed and my grass path, I was using my draw hoe, my brand new gorgeous draw hoe. Thank you, Denise. Draw hoe, this one. Oh, I've just had a load of squash flying. This one, as opposed to a Dutch hoe, which you would use for weeding. I've just used that to pull up, sort of scooch up soil away from the edge and into the bed. So if the grass path is here, like this, then there's a little bit of a drop in level of soil, and like this, and then, there's the bed, there's the soil mound up in the bed. And that little gap, I try to do that with all the edges of the paths. It just acts as a bit of a break for the grass roots, because people keep saying to me, why don't my grass paths, why doesn't it all spread into the beds? Why aren't my beds just all grass? And I'm pretty sure it's because of that break that I make between where the grass roots are and any soil. Also, because visually it pleases me. I like to have a nice neat garden because it sets off the veggies. The veggies become the stars rather than being distracted by weeds and shaggy lawns and shaggy edges. All I'm focusing on is my beautiful plants. So that's literally all the prep I will do for that bed and the tomato bed. Chicken manure, rake it in, just go around the edges where the beds meet paths, scooch the soil back up into the bed and cover it. Now, I've had to use shade covers today because my see-through covers, my Enviromesh covers are still in use because I've seen a lone cabbage white flying around today. Oh, I really want to get my nets off. Now, I've only seen the one on its own. It's just, I can see it right there now on my neighbour's blackcurrant bushes. So I really do think we're just days away from them disappearing, so I can get the nets off. So when the garlic goes in, I will want to put clear nets on to begin with, rather than those shade nets. The shade nets are on today purely to stop the foxes and the cats going in there and going, oh, what a gorgeous place to lay down a poo. Keep them off. The nets, actually I'll talk about those nets when it comes to planting the garlic and why they'll stay on for a while, the clear nets. Which brings me on to the whole subject of, sorry, just locking my phone, of crop and drop. Why I do that, why I use the cardboard, and why I don't do green manure. But you know what, rather than just sit and chat about it, let's get out into the garden so I can do it as we're chatting. Let's see if I can multitask for once. You know, I do find multitasking normally quite easy, but I think the one thing I don't multitask very well at is doing something with my hands and talking at the same time. How peculiar. Anyway, you don't need to know that. What we need to do is get out there and start chopping and dropping. I just remembered something. We won't go out there and crop, chop and drop and chat at the same time because my stool's broken. I've forgotten my stool's broken. So it's a little bit more awkward. And it'll be, I know it's going to be awkward and I'll be kind of stood, hunched, bent, face down. It won't work. So we'll just chat here. Now, green manure. Let's just talk about green manure first of all. I have used green manure. I used green manure for, I think it was 5 winters back to back. I used field beans. Now, green manure can be great, obviously. And I know a lot of you will have used it and had really great successes with it. There are different green manures for different times of year, for sowing at different times of year, and essentially the idea with the green manure is any fallow land we plant our green manures, field beans for example. We plant them, we let them grow, and then when we want to use that bed we kind of cut their tops off and turn that plant material in. Great, feeding the soil. Field beans were the only option for me because my beds are in constant use until round about now, October, even into November. So they're the only thing that would really work over the winter. However, what I found was by sowing the field beans at this time of year, I mean, this is the earliest I'd be doing it because I'm just emptying beds now. So it's about the middle of October. Sowing them now, they'll germinate and they'll get going a little bit. But then they kind of pretty much stop growing for the whole winter and only start again once we get into March. So they're piddly little plants. So that over the winter, they're not really giving the soil any cover. Really no cover at all. So when we're getting these heavy winter rains, they absolutely pelt my soil into just a solid crust. It's hideous stuff. The other problem I found with doing a green manure is they need to be dug in at least 4 weeks before you intend to plant in that bed. So I start my planting sort of beginning of April, which means by the beginning of March at the latest they need to have been dug in. which means at the beginning of February, cutting their tops off to let the tops wilt. And actually, it's by about the middle of February I need to be turning that plant material in to give it a chance to sort of, rot down in the soil and have my soil ready at the beginning of April. The thing was, by the middle of February, even the beginning of March, I mean, there was nothing to them. Basically, the whole garden was exposed for the whole winter. Not only was it exposed and getting pelted, but then by the time we get to March and those green manures need turning in, my ground was so wet, so heavy. It was unbelievably hard work for me. It was just wretched. And I think it was the winter of... I'm trying to think now. It might have been... Oh, I know. It was the winter of 2017 going into 2018 was the last time I did green manure here. And then that spring of 2018, turning in, it was so, I can't begin to tell you how miserable it was as a job. Really, really miserable. And if I weren't so stubborn and if this food production wasn't so important to me, I think I would have given up. I think I really would have given up. Obviously I didn't, but I kind of vowed to myself there and then, that is the last time I am digging green manure into my plot. There has to be another way. And so that's when I started. So that winter, the winter of 2018, going into 19, was the first year that I started just cropping and dropping. Now, obviously, all through the year, I'm continually adding to my compost heaps, whether it's kitchen scraps, torn up cardboard, trimmings and detritus from the garden, grass clippings, leaves, you name it, I'm always composting. The compost I've got at the moment that's cooking away, there's not a huge amount, that will eventually go onto one of the bare beds. But it occurred to me, it's like, why at the end of autumn I'm chopping up all this material and put it in the compost bins, and then the beds are bare. Just cut out the middleman, as it were, cut out the middle woman. Just get it chucked on the beds. So that's what I do now. Literally, as soon as the bed becomes empty, as I'm cutting down material at the end of the season, chop it up a bit, just helps it to break down more quickly, more easily. Get it spread on top of the beds. Done. And then the thing about the cardboard, because folks say, why do you cover your beds in cardboard? And I think people get confused because in no-dig gardening, people lay their compost and then they lay the cardboard down and then all that lovely, beautiful shop-bought, often compost on top to make their fancy new beds. Bear with me a second, my visitor's here. Well, that was a lovely visit. Just tell you briefly. So the girls next door and I, we were hoping to do our squash harvests together on the same day. We were all excited about it. They had a stonking big butternut, I had a stonker. We were going to sister them up together, see how they look together. Anyway, they did theirs on Saturday. I couldn't make it because, like I said, grotty, what have you. Anyway, she just popped down to share with me a slice of, got to remember, Queensland Blue. So they grew mostly Wharf and butternuts, so it's the same as these gorgeous butternuts. Had a lovely harvest. They were getting 3 decent-sized butternuts per vine. They give theirs much more space, and I think I've been too greedy with my space. I'll have a think on it for next year. Anyway, and then the Queensland Blue, great elephant backside, gnarly, big squash. Look. You can tell it's for me. So they've... Oh, let me get it in the light for you. Gosh, this light's tricky today, isn't it? There we go. Beautiful, look, big chunky slice. Look at its gorgeous deep ribs. So they tried it last night, really enjoyed it. So they've delivered a lovely slice to me today to try. Can't wait. And it was great because then I could show my squash harvest, and she showed me a picture of theirs. We're all so excited, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Like we're kids. So back on with the point. Yes, the chop and drop and cardboard cover. So I think the first year I did it, people got confused about why have I put the cardboard on top? You put the cardboard on the bottom to suppress weeds and then pile it up with compost for a no-dig bed. That wasn't what I was aiming for. I am aiming to add nutrition to my soil by, well, my soil is nutritious anyway because of the clay, but it's more about adding organic matter to help, just help breaking up that clay, help with drainage, etc., etc. The cardboard on top it's a rain battering prevention technique. So like I was just saying about the newly prepared garlic bed, I've got the nets on at the moment because of the foxes to keep them off, but eventually they'll have the clear nets on until I can find something, grass clippings, leaves, whatever, to make a really thick mulch on the top of the soil, just to protect it from these winter rains. So until I get that mulch, the nets will stay on to just break the power of the rain. But the bare beds, the empty beds, that's why they get the cardboard. It just stops them getting so battered and utterly sodden from the winter rains. And you know what? It's made a huge difference. My soil is still quite hard work come the spring. Well, it depends. This year not too bad. Last year it was really, really difficult again because we had really strong sun and we were dry right from the beginning of March. So as we got into April and I was uncovering and prepping beds for sowing, the ground had baked solid again, despite all my efforts. But it's definitely getting better. It's slowly catchy monkey. There are all sorts of other things I could do, gypsum, physalia. They've just never happened for one reason or another. But at least the crop and drop and the cardboard helps hugely. It is gradually improving. And just a final note about why I'm not no dig. I'm less dig. That's how I think of myself these days, less dig. For me to cover the beds with enough compost to not have to put a fork in there at all, it's prohibitively expensive. It would cost a fortune. But then there's also the issue about getting compost here. We don't have an address at the allotment, and so most companies simply will not, they don't recognise where this is, so they won't deliver. The one I found last year, they rescued me, they proper rescued me, but it was quite a faff, and also it was expensive. And, I added all that compost, and by the end of the season, it was like, where is it? Where's it all gone? It's all been incorporated. And certainly, I just didn't have a deep enough layer to plant into. So yeah, expense, problems with delivery, but also even if and I'm not asking, please don't send me compost, if you know what I mean. Even if I had £2,000 to spare, well, firstly, I wouldn't spend it on the garden, I'd spend it on home. But let's say I had £2,000 to spare and I could get enough compost to go completely no dig. Just to get it from the gates to my beds, it would half kill me. I think it would kill me more than just doing my spring tickle that I do these days. So yeah, it's not really an option for me. Fine. I know loads of people are doing it and getting on great with it. Brilliant, happy for them. I know loads of people who've tried it on our site and they still end up having to do a bit of a dig. The pernicious weeds, bindweed, that sort of thing. But also, it's just the nature of the soil on my site. In heat and drought, it sets like a rock. During wet weather, the winter, it's a sticky, heavy mass. But chop and drop, crop and drop, crop and chop and drop, and cardboard covering has really, really helped over the last. So I did it 18, 19, 19, 20, 2021. So I've been doing that for 3 years, and it really has started to make a difference. So it's working. It doesn't cost me a penny, so I'll carry on doing it. And did I mention? Yes, so I have got some compost in the bins. What I'll focus on for now is where I've got bare beds. I've got all that bean matter to chop up, chickpea matter. I'll have the last bits of the squash foliage. I'll have nasturtium material to chop up. I'll focus on clearing all of that first and putting it on the beds which are empty. And then, and then I'll be left with 4 or 5 beds, the squash beds, which will be empty. Their material will be on a different bed. That's when I'll go to the compost bins and get whatever's in the compost bins out onto the ex-squash beds. And then my mind will, my mind will move on to, it's already onto it now, gathering leaves, grass clippings. I think we're going to have another work party, so I'll offer to do some mowing. And literally any material that I can get my hands on in the next few weeks. Cover any empty beds, but also, really importantly, where I've got beds in action still over the winter, namely the brassicas. It's going to be especially important now as the nets come off, that ground is a little bit more exposed, is to get another layer of mulch on. They were all mulched when I planted the plants. I think they were all mulched. Oh no, I think the purple sprouting broccoli weren't, because I didn't have any at the time. Certainly the other brassica beds have already been mulched, but that was back in July, August time, and already you can see that that's a lot of it's been taken down by the worms. So yeah, it's all good. Right, I need to go home and have a little play with this. As soon as she brought it out of her bag, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to eat that. I think I might do a risotto with it. No other veggies, just as a risotto, so I can really get a sense of how it tastes. And who knows, maybe, if I love it, it'll come into my repertoire. She said it was an absolute nightmare to cut into. And I said, do you know what? Don't use a kitchen knife. Get out a saw. You need a saw for your big squash. Brilliant. All right, my lovelies. So, yes, there we go. Chop, crop and drop. Bit of winter bed prep for the next crops that are going in. And more than anything, just enjoying this beautiful, unexpected warmth and brightness. Because it's not going to last, is it? How are you all doing with your weather? Are some of you under snow already? I don't know how you... Honestly, I don't know how you guys cope where, you know, your season has ended and it won't really start again until April or May next year. Does it not drive you crazy to not be in the garden? Oh. Well, if it does, I hope some of that craziness is ameliorated by spending some time with me in my garden. I hope so. Right, I'll see you all again really soon, I hope. What is next on the agenda? Oh, I think might be a bit of tinker time and harvesting, all to do with herbs and flowers. Yeah, let's plan to do that next, because that'll be a nice, kind of quiet, gentle job. Oh, but before then, oh, shut up, Vivi, never mind. The next video will be the next video. I'll see you there, then, at some point. Bye for now.